Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Maui, Hawaii, United States of America. July 24th, 2021. Today's talk, perhaps political, perhaps human, perhaps cosmological. It's feeling as if it needs to come through. I'm not sure how I'm going to present it, but I'm feeling it. The issue of misinformation, the creation from the story, the film Frankenstein, the normalization of lies, it's another phrase, the capacity of the human soul, the psyche, you and me, to empower and to discern independent thinking, high ethical research, the wisdom of truth, knowing how to feel it on a meditative level. What is the truth rather than what appeals to predilections, conditioning, distorted memories, ways in which we reinterpret phenomena from the past into the present to recreate the past into a conflict-oriented future, and how to navigate historical references without bias and to overcome prejudices, misinformation, distortions, disinformation, propaganda, God and the devil. Well, even the word Lucifer, I was looking that up, and it's, of course, I think it's been popularized by Christian theology to mean something likened to the devil. But if I'm not mistaken, Lucifer was often referred to in relationship to Venus, and was often referred to as the morning star, a beautiful, radiant dawning of wisdom and light. But now, Lucifer is immediately denigrated into the darkness of the devil, and how reassociations of words and meanings can distort present time reality of their true essence. Even thinking around the corner around this so-called pandemic, this pandemic that is just this out of control virus, the out of control testing of a so-called virus, the out of control manipulation of information about the pandemic and about the virus and about the vaccine and about who is on the right side of truth and harmony, who's protecting life and who's denigrating life. The cluster, F-U-C-K, of what's going down in the name of health and hygiene. And you cannot exclude a dialogue about China, about Xi Jinping, about the city of Wuhan, the Institute of Virology in Wuhan, the bioweapons lab in Wuhan, the virovirus. And I don't even know if the word big pharma is an appropriate word for me anymore. I would say it's more connected to like the drug cartels out of Mexico and South America. I think big pharma is really better understood as a pharmaceutical drug cartel, which there's no ambiguity about the drug cartels out of Mexico and in our own country of America, around the world, driven by profit, by money, by the predator behaviors to saturate the human mind and one's life with these substances that violate the sanctity of one's mental health, their choices, the compromising and the collapse of family, of their financial roots, of the death of decency. And pharmacies, like tobacco, like the war machine, the forever war machine, the forever war, that is so satanically Orwellian, the forever war. And to think right now that type of evil is playing itself out on our sphere called planet Earth, where boys and girls that we may not know by name but are identical to our children and to our lovers and to our family and our friends are being massacred in the name of the cartel, of the forever war, the marquee selling the options in the manufacturing of death. And the distortions here with the distortions of it being done in the name of democracy, the distortions of it being done in the name of freedom. And here we are pulling out of so-called Afghanistan, and the entire country collapsing village by village, city by city, in the pandemonium and the horror, and the American regime right now trying to do what they can to get the people who've supported the American occupation of Afghanistan out of the country. 20 years of our money and our toxicity and our trauma for money. And so this idea of misinformation and you can't say enough really about the cult of money and profit, loot. What is going down with loot that it is so tasty that people sell their soul? They create Frankensteins of themselves. I'm thinking of, here we are, July 2021. Will there be a July 2022? What will it look like? Are we headed to the precipice of global annihilation? This Frankenstein image that comes to mind of how a man created through the slaughter, the dismemberment of bodies, and through some type of alchemical life sourcing, brought to life this creature. And is it the father that created the creature? And it's often mistaken that the creature is Frankenstein, but the father was the Frankenstein who created the creature, perhaps in his own diabolical, repressed darkness. And there we have this extraordinary novel done by a young girl, if I'm not mistaken, when she was written, 18, 19 years old. And we have a Frankenstein image in the world today. And I'm thinking of this parallel and what went down in this bioweapons lab in Wuhan, funded by our Dr. Anthony Fauci and the military that he worked for, my country's military, that funded the gain of function through Fauci's research and his colleagues in a Chinese communist-run bioweapons factory lab. It's so Frankensteinian, isn't it? The virology of a Frankenstein is no different than the novel The Frankenstein, and yet Fauci's the Frankenstein here, along with the collective apparatus of the Lucifer complex. We're all bright lights, we're all Venuses, we're all dawns on the horizon of hope. But through the distortions of consciousness, is it really intrinsically found in money that there is that poisonous toxicity within the dollar, within the crypto, within the perception of wealth and the status of building? Are we that out of control that we mistake modern day culture as a logo project in which we create these monsters that kill us in a lab in Wuhan? I can only imagine what those men and women were doing, and Dr. Anthony Satanic Lucifer Fauci, no offense, Mr. Fauci, but you seem to me, from my humble research, to be utterly drunk, driven, intoxicated with the hyper fentanyl of the lust for money. I mean, if there's ever a need for a new substance on the world, may someone create a post-ayahuasca molecule, a heightened psychedelic molecule that can simply be breathed through the interior of one's subconscious. Doesn't have to go in through one's nostrils, where it decodes the Frankenstein in the mind. It decodes COVID-19, the creation. And yes, there are going to be variants and deviants, and who knows what the hell's going to come down the digital Wuhan, anywhere in the world, laboratory pike. And who is the next Frankenstein that creates, oh my God, SARS-CoV-19 today, Delta tonight, Lucifer tomorrow. Let's call it by its true name. We've created a viral Frankenstein. Someone's done it. It could be my tax dollar and your tax dollar, but what a moment of potential resurrection, right? Within the darkness, as Martin Luther King said, only when it's dark out can you see the stars. My God, I'm here on the side of an active volcano that hasn't gone off for a few hundred years, but perhaps in any second it will. Meanwhile, every now and again, when I'm kind of not in my own narrative of what isn't right, or that I'm dying from an aneurysm, or where can I move where there's no crooks and chickens, I look at the stars and I go, wow, wow, wow. To me, when I think of Frankenstein, when I think of bioweapons labs, when I think of the pornography of profit and money, I think people have lost wow. They've lost astonishment. They've lost wonderment. They've lost the frequency of awe. Isn't that what meditation and yoga and intimacy and eroticism and tantra are all plugged into the trans-Frankensteinian virus creation? Who are we? Where are we? Where are we going? Okay, just my opening scream. Catching myself a little out of breath here. I'll come back into it. But yes, this is an incredibly tense, crazy moment where we must really weed out our proclivity to belong to the cult of misinformation, deliberate manufacturing of data in words put into phrases and sentences that are deliberately meant to deceive and to potentially control communities, families, nations, populations with a lie, with a distortion. To me, that is Frankensteinian. To me, that is the analogy of the virus. The virus of propaganda, lies, falsification, distortions, misinformation, and downright deceit. And yes, I don't want to condemn the darkness any more than those who live in darkness condemn themselves, but what are we going to do about it really becomes the issue. It's one thing to practice meditation and yoga and mind freedom in one's own temple of consciousness. But here we are today where the world has gone crazy. The front lines today of the war is everywhere. It's in our phone, on our computers. It's in our family systems. It's in our very DNA. And now they want to inject even something that's so radically experimental that even the people behind it are likened to Lucifer-like satanic Frankensteinian bioweapons-like creatures, and they expect us to go along with the jab when in fact their hands are deeply in the morgue of their own denied evil. There's no other way to look at this. There is so much information that is readily available everywhere, the least of which is listening to Robert Kennedy Jr.'s lucid clarity in short amounts of time on decoding the infrastructure of the pharmaceutical cartels. Just listen to him, find him and listen to him. The pharmaceutical cartels, the incredible ecosystem of profit and money within the Faucian ecosystem of evil. And I see no other way to look at it other than the Faucian system of evil. And it's the perhaps global system of evil. It could be very well the Wall Street American pharmaceutical ecosystem of creating a Frankensteinian viral circumstance where they have mistaken what they do for the name of Lucifer, which was originally a Venus, a bright light, a shining dawn, and now it has been reappropriated to mean the devil. And it's like, where did we lose the plot? Misinformation as the running dog of profit. Could it be something even more diabolical than that? I don't have, as you don't have, we don't have the kind of astrophysical, microscopic, mindful intelligence to decode at the substratum of the denied consciousness of our own being. We're trying the best that we can from the island tip. The best that we can do is walk along the beach, and some even snorkel and some even deep sea dive, but we're not submarines by nature. We don't understand the depths of the human psyche. We have no clue about what precedes the subconscious. We have no idea ultimately who we are in this great infinite totality called samsara. Microdots is still a vast continent on infinity. We're dealing with a stacked deck against us, and how easy it is to see, even among us, the men and women who wear suits and ties and dresses and parade along the corridors of power in our Oval Office, in our Senate, in our tall skyscrapers, in our dungeons. They walk and they talk with privilege and power, and they're driven by money and the Frankensteinian creation of profit, creating viruses that kill, gain of function, the deliberate increasing of lethality of a virus is so sci-fi for me, dark sci-fi. That is the reimagination of the Frankenstein novel. That is so diabolical. Where's the 1984? Well, in fact, I wrote it. Read my book, Extinction X-Rated. It dives right into the core of this issue, at the center of the issue. What can we do as individuals collectively to rise up, refuse to be silenced? Isn't that the mantra of freedom today? Refuse to be silenced, but yes, what will you say when you speak? That to me is the act of grace, the act of the Dharma, the act of freedom in dynamic action. Every one of us today as citizens of the world, I feel, not to preach, but to state the obvious, but to re-inspire the courage to go deeper. Every one of us have an obligation to our family, to our planet, to the future of life, to your God, to your Buddha, to your Allah, whomever you pray and worship at the altar of your freedom and dignity. We have an obligation to evolve the qualities of trans-Frankensteinian behaviors and elevate the status of independent thinking, deep reasoning, radical inquiry, non-persecution, reconciliation, and let truth radiate in a Venus-like dawn and overcoming the misinformation that Lucifer means the devil. It's light misinformation. The Christian theology, the four walls of dogma, the cult of orthodoxy took the word and created darkness with it. Good morning. Just feeling it today, feeling the need to keep conscience and dignity and activism and ethical courage and meditation way the hell off the cushion, way out of the orthodoxy of my need to overcome stress and anxiety and trauma, for me to develop peace and freedom, all me, the cult of me, when in fact the power brokers of money and control, the next totalitarianism, is basically knocking at our flesh. And I'm not going to say this too loudly. They're knocking at our flesh, demonizing you as the incarnation of a Frankenstein, a devil, a Lucifer, if you don't willingly roll up your sleeve and take the jab and get a booster upon a booster upon a booster by the creation from the pharmaceutical cartels. Why would you sell me nicotine and tell me, listen, you can be happy despite having emphysema and lung cancer? What in the hell do you take me for to think that you have trust? Money, 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 money. It's not the root of all evil. There's something deeper in that. And I'll close with this because it's a wild rant, and I'll work my blood pressure up when it's normally low. Next thing you know, I'll collapse right on here live on the, kind of an immolation. Don't want to do that, so just chill. But, however, it's an important moment for all of us to really, really reinvent. Yes, if you need to tune out, go. But if you want to tune in and really elevate the status of the qualities that you define yourself by, dignity, conscience, independent thinking, do your research. Do not trust the New York Times. Do not trust the Washington Post. Certainly do not empower clown network news, CNN, the BBC, all the running dogs of the Faucian, Frankensteinian viral bioweapons lab program. Hello, welcome to Hiroshima gone global. What in the hell are we thinking in the name of immunization from what? This is the injection of misinformation unless we understand the euphemism of a vaccine. Is that really the appropriate word for this thing? Or is it the misinformational use of a label to describe potentially a pathogen? I think we need to have an open discussion to state the obvious by so many men and women, doctors and scientists and health workers, so many people around the world. Rand Paul, our senator, standing up. Let's not be silenced here. We as a species define ourselves by the decency of conscience in reasoning and the desire deep in the soul not to ever forget the Holocaust. And how many times in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, especially the last month, have I heard that we are in a global depopulation moment? I'm going to interview someone soon. I'm going to announce it soon, who I've met out here, who is a radical savant of information, level-headed, smart, a great healer, very good friend at the moment of mine. And I'm going to really probe and understand to the best of my ability how to understand the circumstances medically, scientifically, and politically of what's going down right now by people, especially a gentleman who's at the top of the pyramid of information about how to understand what is happening in the world today with the virus, with the COVID, with the vaccinations, with the politicalization of things. What is the agenda here? What is the agenda here? So let me close. Misinformation, deliberate misuse of data and information to deceive, to coerce, and to control. The opposite of that, independent thinking, deep reasoning, mindful intelligence. Mindfulness is not enough. You can look through the scope at an enemy and you can mindfully pull the trigger and mindfully keep your stress at bay as you annihilate someone you've never met based upon the information you've been told to kill that individual because they're an enemy. Intelligence will look through that scope and question the validity of the information that you believe to be true in your own mind. And there is a type there, a moment of ethical doubt where you unsqueeze the trigger of denial and confidence in propaganda, and you question, you go back to the source that you were told that that is an enemy and that you should kill that enemy. And you say, by what right is that person the enemy? And you inquire. Mindful intelligence, MQ. Mindfulness is not enough. Deep reasoning, deep questioning, deep mindful intelligence, deep patience. In our culture, and we see this across the board, the corruption of institutions, communities, sanghas, based upon the predilection to profit, for privilege, for sexual proximity. It's just the human condition, the planetary condition. Look at the normalization that went down, that goes down right now in the Catholic Church around predation. Mind you, there were thousands of priests, not just low-ranking priests, but high-ranking bishops, even archbishops. And it went all the way to the Vatican. The need to protect orthodoxy, the need to collude with the predators upon the children in order to protect the institution. The same could be said for the institution of America, the institution of the pharmaceutical companies, the orthodoxy, the constant inverted tsunami of needing to be overwhelmed with more and more money, more and more wealth, more and more false power. We need to confront this obligation, this toxic obligation, to conformity to the institution, to orthodoxy, to religion, to politics, all the ways in which we cut off from the decency of dignity and conscience and mindful intelligence. We must decode how we collude with protecting the elite and the orthodoxy that they say they protect. It is wrong to have taken our boys and girls on the altar and created sodomy and predation in the Catholic Church, in the Buddhist Church. But look at the normalization of many good men and women in those systems who don't really speak up and propagate the misinformation, distortions, the cult of power and profit and privilege through their silence, through their obscuration, and through their vilification of people who do speak up. That battleground there is what's at stake right now. And oddly, over the 40 years of my study of totalitarianism in Burma, and more recently in China, Tibet, Hong Kong, and around the world, the psychology of dictatorship, I never dreamt in my life that it would be global. But right now, misinformation, which is the running dog of dictatorship, and the penalty of cancellation is the predilection of those in power to silence opposition, It is our duty today to rise up in our yoga, our meditation, our politics, our decency, our dignity, our conscience, our love of freedom, and not to be silenced. I'm stating the obvious, but if it's obvious to you, then leave it behind. But if it's not obvious to you, the takeaway today, the Frankensteins of profit at all costs, the distorters of information and truth at all costs, are on the march. And they've created now a Frankenstein in a virus. The pharmaceutical companies, the pharmaceutical cartels, we have no real idea what they have created. But there's enough information out there among medical professionals to challenge the narratives of what they're telling us. We need to think freely. The moment is now, or forever hold our peace in our own denial. And I think that's not something that we wish to do. So may I encourage you to encourage me to encourage our friends. Do not stay silent. Hope to see you tomorrow, God willing. Thank you.